used to the back and forth. This is a not normal situation for anybody, so
Yeah.
nobody has any expectations or whatever happens, we're just, you know.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
I've
a
been
good
to a
morning.
couple of meetings before.
Yeah.
They usually have them in like that
At
smaller
the
room.
AOB.
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah. Yep. So, all right, well, I'll let you head to the viewing room and then I will see you whenever it's your turn.
Thank
If you need anything, just text me. Could you hear us?
Hey, Chaz, can you hear us and vice versa? We want to check and make sure we can hear you.
Hello, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back on mute.
Hey, Steve, can we verify your audio, please?
Yeah, I'm on.
That's great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Once you get on academy, all right,
I can
leadership.
see Steve. He's
She bailed on us about
He
9
verified
That's
audio.
my understanding. Yeah, could be
Okay,
received.
that's gone.
He's right up here.
I want to let you start the meeting like we do since we're here, and Steve's right there, you can see
Let me
him.
turn my phone off.
So if you will.
Okay.
go ahead, Tim.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for joining, and we'll start with a moment of silence and the pledge. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's good to see everybody this afternoon. This is kind of fun. Steve, you're right here in the middle of the room. We can all see you too.
Awesome. Y'all look great.
I'm going to read this statement here because we are having a virtual meeting. As you see, we don't have the public in here. The Cleveland City Schools Board of Education will hold a meeting electronically pursuant to Executive Order 16, issued on March 20th, 2020 by Governor Bill Lee at 2:30 p.m. on April 20th. The electronic meeting is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Members of the public may attend and listen to the meeting through access of the video at the address given there. I'm not going to read all those. And also pursuant to this order, we have to do roll call votes on all of our votes so that that's recorded appropriately, and a roll call attendance, and Julie's going to call that for me right now.
All right. John Robinson.
Here.
Tom Cloud.
Here.
Charlie Coggle.
Here.
Carolyn Ingram.
Here.
Krista McKay. Here. Steve Morgan.
Here.
Peggy Pasterfield. Here.
Thank you. All right, board members, you have the consent agenda in front of you. And I'm going to add something with your permission. If you want to pull it off, you can. But the pavilion at Candies Creek Cherokee that the PTO has offered to build, pay for, have designed, run it through. Jean and Dr. Dyer can give you more information if you want, but I'm going to put that on consent unless you want to take it off. We also have approval of the regular agenda, approval of the minutes from April 20th, approval of the CHS Capstone project, approval of the CCS nutrition documents, approval of IDEA and ESEA for the 2021 school year, approval of the Chromebook contract, approval of the DHA committee, approval of a 5-year purchase of Go Guardian. So would anybody like to take any of those items off of the consent agenda?
I've got one question.
Okay, sure.
I guess it's to Cody there on the Chromebook, the lease is up or whatever. Are we gonna be able to put any of those down at the elementary level? 5th grade or 4th grade?
we do have a plan for that, but that would come through our actually CARES Act money that we're going to be getting from the federal government as part of the funding for COVID-19. So we do have a plan for how we could go into the elementary schools using that money to make sure grades 3 through 5 are covered.
So the Chromebooks we've been using, we're not able to.
No, those Chromebooks have served their
Lease.
servable life basically after 3 years. So students wear and tear and things, those computers have seen better days.
Are we gonna be able to do, when are we gonna be able to do the 3rd through the 5th grade?
We have to get the money approved by the state.
Okay,
So that process is happening now. I believe our application is due June 15th, I believe, to the state, and they have to go through the funding mechanisms, but we do believe we'll be able to move forward with that.
So the old ones are not salvageable at all?
We don't actually own them. The leasing company still owns them. So there's a cost to buy them out if we wanted to keep them.
Gotcha.
All right, if there's no more questions, we need a motion to approve consent, please.
So moved.
second,
And second by Charlie. Okay, Julie, if you'll call the roll, please.
Okay. Tom Cloud,
Yes.
Charlie Cogdill,
yes,
Steve Morgan,
Yes.
Carolyn Ingram,
Yes.
Krista McKay,
Yes.
Dawn Robinson,
Yes.
Peggy Pesterfield.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, we will move to Dr. Dyer's update for us.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, in our hybrid meeting for today. It's good to see you both live and through our television or telecomputer system with Steve here. So our updates for today, I have several for you, and we're going to start off talking about graduation at the high school. Graduation this year for schools across the country looks much different than it normally does. As you all are aware, we're seeing everything from virtual graduations to hybrid graduations to real graduations with separation. It's just, there's a large variety in our region, in our state, and of course across the country. Where we have landed as far as the high school graduation in consultation with a lot of different people from the health department to our student body, to teachers, administrators, stakeholders in general, we have landed on June 12th, 13th, or 14th for graduation. One of those days, our plan, pending the weather and things like that, that's what we really have those backup dates for. We want to graduate our students, and we want to celebrate our seniors, Hayes, and everybody else that day or one of those days to really give them the send-off that they deserve. So our graduation is slated for, if it's on June 12th, which is a Friday, or Saturday the 13th, will be at 9 o'clock in the morning at Benny Monroe. If it's on Sunday, due to church and other activities on Sunday mornings, we want to move that to 7 o'clock in the evening that particular day. But our hope and our desire is for Friday the 12th to have our graduation. Of course, we're going to be adhering to all social principles, social distancing principles that are in place. We have ordered face masks for all of our students. We encourage people in the community to come to wear a face mask. The exact details for how tickets will work and how all those different operations will work, what time graduation practice will take place, all those things are going to be released by the high school fairly soon. They're still working out a few of the details that go along with that, but I think we're going to have a very nice graduation ceremony. I like where the plan has gone. There's gone through several renditions, as you know, and are fully aware. The May 15th date just was not going to work well due to what was going on at that time period. And in this case, we can graduate our students together. And I think that is important for our student body. So I am looking forward to Ms. O'Brien letting the families and students all know about the exact details of the plan here in the near future. Any questions on graduation?
I have a question for dress wear for us. We've all, a lot of us have been to graduations on Benny Monroe Field.
Right.
And we've worn something casual or,
Sure.
you know, a suit or something like that.
That's actually a question I was going to ask you all at some point, so I can just ask it now. You can determine what you would like to dress as a group. Whether you'd like to come with regalia on, could be a little warm out there. I'll be wearing regalia, but board members, you're welcome to do as you wish to do as far as that goes. And you know, you can discuss that. You know, I can send an email out and just see what you want to do, or you can discuss it right now if you'd like to. So
Let's discuss it.
there you go.
Good.
Yeah.
I would prefer to wear just casual, just a sport jacket or something like that.
I agree with Tom.
Well, are we gonna be down on the field or up on the stage? How's that?
We will not have a stage there.
Okay.
Where we're gonna be is right on the field.
Okay, so
So-
that could help you decide what you like. I don't care, I can go with the crowd. I can wear shorts under one of those robes.
We will have an area where we're sitting on the field, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
I can go either way.
Yeah, I could go either way. I'm indifferent.
Doesn't matter,
I
well
guess we'll
then,
leave it up to the guys.
I guess we'll let the guys choose if they wanna do that.
Mark this down, Charlie.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah, it's
So-
very rare.
I will pass that on to the high school administration that you will not be wearing your regalia, but you would like to sit on the field with the administration and staff.
Absolutely.
Very nice. I'll be glad to
And
do
we would
that.
like to, if they're gonna process it, are they gonna do that?
That's something that was still being determined. Last I heard, probably not, but
Okay,
anything could change. It just kind of depends on where we are and what we're doing, so.
okay.
Dr. Dyer, I have a question about the 12th, if that should be the date. What about parents who work?
Yeah, we've thought about that, but temperatures, we need to be careful about temperatures when we're doing something outside. The turf is very nice, but the turf can also get very hot.
Yep.
So it gets much warmer than regular grass would get. So we do want to be mindful of that, and also sitting on aluminum stands during the heat can be warm when people are probably wearing a little nicer clothes than they might wear for a high school football game. So we want to be mindful of those things, and we want to give enough notice where people could get off work if they need to or need to rearrange a schedule. But I understand exactly what you're asking.
So my question is there a priority of order, like first choice would be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Do you know what that first choice would be?
First choice would be do Friday
Okay.
and then Saturday.
And do you know when they're gonna, and this might be something that's gonna be communicated out later, when they're
Right.
actually gonna pull the trigger and say,
I think
This
as soon as we
day.
know the forecast would be my best guess, and if it looks like Friday looks good, go with it. If there's iffy chance, we'll have to make that. As you all know, the forecast around here can change in a heartbeat, and it does normally rain more in the afternoon than it does in the morning hours, so that's another reason for those that morning time. But yes, I agree. The sooner we can make an announcement that Friday is definitive, or there's a 60% chance of rain, we're gonna move it to Saturday, then we'll
or
gladly
even
be sure to
letting
do.
parents know that that the preferred date
Exactly.
is this.
Exactly.
And if there's a change, then it will be this
Right.
or that. That way they can plan a little
I
bit
agree.
better.
I agree.
Any other questions about that? Good deal. Steve, any
Okay.
questions? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, we didn't ask him what he wanted to wear. What do you want to wear, Steve?
I'll just go with the guys.
There you go.
That was a safe vote,
First
okay.
time for everything.
All right, talking about end of the 2019-20 school year reflection. First of all, I just want to congratulate our whole team, our community in general, but our team from the schools, teachers, administrators, cafeteria staff, to our central office administrators. I can't tell you how proud I am of the job that was accomplished in ending the 2019-20 school year. And you're fully aware, I don't need to go into all the details about what happened and why we did what we did and everything that took place. But if you think back to spring break, I happened to be in Argentina with a group from the high school, and all this really blew up. And from that point forward, we all thought we were coming back to school that Monday, and we never made it back. And we took about a week off to figure out the exact plans and details for what was going to roll out the following week. And that following week, we started feeding kids, and we had an academic plan, a new website was going up, and I can't tell you how many other school systems have reached out, especially at that time, and said that they were modeling what they were doing off what we were doing. So, I can't say enough good things about our team and the job that they have done. You can look and just see in the past 10 weeks of school, 171,323 meals were served, not in a school building, but out of a school bus or somewhere at a school facility outside when families would drive up. That's a lot of meals that would not have been served, and students that might not have had food for the day that were able to eat because of the, service that was provided for them. Going beyond that, some other things just to celebrate. Our first TVEC, our Tennessee Valley Early College, our first cohort of students that we really couldn't celebrate the way we would have wanted to. They were able to graduate this year from both Cleveland State and Cleveland High School. So not only did they get their high school diploma, they also got their associate's degree this year. So you started that program before I got here, and this is the first year. Here we are. Those students.
How many do we have?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Hayes, do you know off the chance?
I don't.
I don't know. I want to say it was around 20, but I would need to find out the exact
Amazing.
details on that. So those students worked
Will
extremely
they be
hard.
recognized at graduation some
There
way?
probably will be some sort of graduate or some sort of distinction or
Have them
something
stand
for
up
them.
or something?
Yeah, so I don't know the exact details on that either, but I'm sure the high school has something worked out for that. The high school also was named the Capturing Kids' Hearts National Showcase School, which is something that they've been working extremely hard on, and designated as a Tennessee STEM school. So, K through 12, we just have so much to celebrate in our system. And even though it was an interesting end to the school year, we accomplished a lot this year. And you've seen the highlights that have been part of the tweets that have been put out, or on social media, or the notes that come on your agenda here, or just things that you hear from the community members. We have a system to be proud of. And also, just going with this is our largest school system population. This year we had 5,613 students at the end of the school year, which is 172 more students than the end of the previous school year. So we saw a definite growth pattern happen this year. Folks like what they're seeing in Cleveland City Schools, and they're coming to be part of that. And that's something that, of course, we're very proud of. And just personal thoughts, as I shared earlier, I am glad to be part of Cleveland City Schools. We have, I said this when I first came in, you as a school board are very progressive in your ways, and that allows our school system, our principals, our teachers, to really think outside the box, and they're not just stuck in doing the same thing the same way all the time. And that showed really, I think, through these last 10 weeks, that we allowed our principals, our teachers, to really dream and really think about how we can educate kids in a way that we've never had to do this before. So I think this is just the stepping stone, because now we're already thinking about next year. Do we really want school to look the same anymore? The school model itself has somewhat been dismantled. You'll still have regular classrooms, and you'll have chairs, and you'll have, boards, and you'll have computers, and teachers, of course, are the most important thing that we have going there. But the model for how we deliver education, I think, will change because of what we've been through. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We need to continue to innovate and think about ways we can move forward.
Doctor, about how many students do not have access to computers? Do we have many?
Dr. Raper, what would be your best percentage there, based on what you've looked at?
612, none. They all have access to a computer because we provide those.
Not computer, I mean internet.
It's really hard to collect those data because when you send out surveys, they're digital surveys, so they kind of get skewed. But
Right.
I would guess probably 15 to 20%.
Yeah. But even those 15 to 20 probably have some sort of phone plan.
Something
So
like-
with that, they may not have Wi-Fi at their home, but I think probably of that 15 to 20%, probably 10 to, I'm making up a number, but I would think a good percentage of those do have some sort of LTE service of some degree.
And then we've also opened up Wi-Fi in our parking lots to where
Okay.
students can bring their school-issued computers and access devices that way too. So
We're in much better shape than the county is.
We're in much better shape than, I would say, a good majority of districts across the state are, to be real honest with you. We're in really good shape technology-wise, but we have to continue to innovate, because as you know, as soon as you buy a laptop, it's out of date and you're looking for the next thing. So that's just part of it, unfortunately. And but we are doing a good job, and Dr. Raper and his team, working with the academic team. It's just been an amazing adventure.
Is there any way to know how much those were utilized, parking lot,
Yeah.
internet access? Unless you just sit there and look for cars?
yeah, short of sitting and looking for somebody, it's hard to tell because the data we would get back on that is Could be anything.
You can't
Right.
tell. Because I love that. I told that to so many people. I heard that a bus had internet on it. Did we do that during this time as well? Was that the one parked at Blythe Bower or did it move?
We have a bus that has Wi-Fi access that we utilized some whenever we went out for meals and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which, that is something we are also looking to use some of the CARES Act money for, to be able to put more Wi-Fi on more of our buses. That way, when students are either traveling, or if we're doing a feeding program in the fall at some point, or if school's closed for a week or two, then we can take a bus out and feed students, but also they could be on the bus doing their work potentially. Or, with a Chromebook, you can do your work offline, and all you have to do is connect back to the internet anywhere, a library, a bus, anywhere, and then right back up to your teacher. And that way they can do the feedback. So there are a lot of good things about using the type of devices that we use.
Could we ever use any of our old buses that we could not use for transporting students and create a hotspot?
We could, that's always an opportunity. Most of our old buses are sold, except for buses that are sub buses, because that helps us pay for the new buses, of course, that we get. But that's always something we can look at.
So if we have internet in Blythe Bower School, for example, or Ormond School, and I drive up and park in front of the school, can I access that internet by being out there, or does it not reach outside the building?
Yeah, so we have a map available. Specifically, we targeted Cleveland Middle and Blythe Bower because they were at different sides of the district or the city. And so if you, as long as you're parked within that map where it shows that it's highlighted and you can get internet access, yes. Now, we've only made it available to Cleveland City School issued devices for now as we're testing it out to see where we want to go with that.
Okay, that's very, very good.
That's good.
Good. Well, let's move to the next slide, and I'm going to give an update about our planning for next year. And I will just tell you, this is all subject to change. Right now we are deep into planning and looking at scenarios, but everything I'm going to tell you could change based on whatever comes out next week, next month, whatever the case may be. So right now, the Southeast Core, which is our county and several other counties that work together with our TDOE regional office, there's a task force that is looking at what it takes to open school in the fall and what are scenarios that we might be using for opening our school buildings back and everything else that goes with that. So when I say that, what I'm talking about is, of course, our first scenario, it would be we come back like nothing has changed. We go back to school in the fall, buses are running, cafeterias are working, students are all in school, classes are happening, transitions happen as normal. That's plan A. We would all love to come back to that. But realistically, we have to also think of other plans. So that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're working on various plans for phasing students back in, for example. Perhaps for, and again, these are all drafts. I'm just basically talking here about what we're looking at. That could include, perhaps for the month of August, 25% of your students come back in phases during the week. Okay, maybe the next month you phase more in. It really just depends on where the COVID-19 numbers are at that particular time. We're also looking at hybrid models. What does it look like for a student to be able to work from home on their computer for part of the time and then come to school for part of the time? And of course, you're going to hear more about this later when we get into our strategic planning, but virtual school. Right now, we've never operated a true virtual school. We're going to be able to do that starting in the fall. And we're going to have students that I know will want to enroll in that K through 12. So, in the past, we've been planning for a middle school and high school virtual school. Well, now we understand we better plan all the way down to kindergarten. So we're going to have seats available for K through 12, more than likely, in a virtual school situation. So right now, TDOE, the Tennessee Department of Education, is working on toolkits. And one of the toolkits that we're waiting to have processed and brought to life is a kind of a rule book that we can use for opening school. Now, what they're waiting on is the State Board of Education has to pass waivers for us to be able to do certain things. For example, the 180-day rule, the amount of hours that students have to sit at a desk rule, the amount of hours that Perhaps a student who does virtual school would have to sit in front of a computer. You know, that all those things have to be vetted out, and there are rules there are rules and procedures for everything. And all of those will need waivers from the State Board of Education, which would then translate probably into changes to board policy and our own rules and regulations that we operate under to make things happen.
Dr. what about funding? Would they continue to give us the funding that we've been having, or would they cut?
Right now, the General Assembly is meeting. So I can tell you better in about 2 weeks probably what that looks like. I watched the General Assembly's Finance Committee in action on Thursday. And on Thursday, this was the Senate. The slideshow from the Finance Department basically said that the governor is committed to fully funding the BEP. So that's good news. But they've also said that they're going to leave it to the legislature to make any adjustments to the budget as the legislature sees fit. So part of what you're seeing, if you read different newspaper articles, for example, is the 2% raise for employees. You know, that may or may not make it through depending on what the funding needs are at the state level. So I would say right now, just pay close attention to what you're seeing out of the General Assembly, because that translates straight into what your question of how do we fund all these different things that we want to do. So that would be a suggestion that I would just keep following. And of course I will, and I'll inform you as I learn more as well. But that's something we're definitely looking at.
You know, I see busing as one of the biggest problems, how to get all the kids to school and still maintain social distancing.
That's exactly, you know, right now with a 6-foot rule and CDC regulations that are out currently about buses, it would almost be impossible to transport students to school. You would literally break your budget by having to do the amount of runs you would have to do to pick students up. I don't see how it's doable, to be real honest with you. We will figure it out, because that's what we do in the field of education. We figure it out, we come up with a plan, we make the plan happen, but it would be difficult to operate a transportation program based on the current rules and regulations that are out there. But when you think through this, we currently have a task force that we've identified. Dr. Elliott's going to be the chair of that, and the task force is made up of educators, made up of both teachers, we have administrators and so forth, that we really are trying to vet a lot of different things. And what I've put on here are some of the things that we're trying to vet. That includes an academic plan. Do we come back with a full schedule? Do we come back with phased schedules, hybrid, virtual, or something like all of the above? You know, that's something we're really having to dive deep into. How do we do intervention and remediation? Students missed a whole 9 weeks of school. You know, and for a student that's in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, that's really foundational reading that they have just completely missed as having a teacher in front of them. Now, their parents have worked hard, I know, at home teaching. So I'm not saying they missed everything. But it's not quite the same as being in a classroom with a licensed teacher who's trained to teach these subjects. So it is different for them. Hallway transitions. How do we do restrooms? You know, how do we keep restrooms open and monitor how many students go in, how many students come out, the cleaning of those on a regular basis? Those things are got to be thought about. Social distance classrooms. How do you get enough PPE, the mask, gloves, to refresh those on a daily basis? That's a lot of PPE over the course of a year. Mental and emotional health, that's what we're spending a lot of time thinking about now. How do we make sure our students and staff are mentally prepared for what they're coming back into? How are we making sure we're meeting the social, emotional needs of students and staff? The technology needs, transportation, school nutrition, you know, how do you run a school cafeteria? You know, a lot of talk right now is classrooms will become your lunch station, your breakfast place, and food would probably be brought to you. That is a big change over the way we operate right now. Extracurricular activities and events, whether it's band camp this summer or, there's even talk about, at a football game. If you have a football game, does the band come? Because those kids are sitting right, I don't know. I don't have the answer right this second. Field trips, local, regional, out of state, or international trips that we do. You know, how do you do those The answer is right now, you probably don't. They're virtual field trips as of right this moment. Calendar-wise, we have our calendar set for next year, but you heard colleges are changing their schedules. You know, if you look at what UT Knoxville has done, they're starting earlier, they're finishing in November, they've canceled fall break. They're gonna do virtual exams when they come back. Everything is on the table. And I don't have answers for you right this second. But what I can tell you is there's a good chance we're gonna need a special call meeting at some point. Probably late June, sometime in July, where we can sit down and say, here's where we are, here are the scenarios we have, here's what we need to do. But we also know families need to know answers because they have to plan for daycare, they have to plan for all these other things that have to happen. And the state is fully aware of that. I'm on the academic planning committee, they're aware of that. So I think we'll come up with solutions. Our plan is hopefully by the end of June, have more of this nailed down, and then we can come back at some special call meeting at some point, probably early July, and nail down some of these details that everyone wants to know. I want to know the details too, but right now that's where we are.
So, Dr. Dyer, are you saying that you, as the task force here, will be making these decisions, or will it come from the state?
Well, this is what I think. Okay, this is not what I know. This is what I think. I think the state will issue guidelines. I think we'll have a set of guidelines that come down that say we need to be in these parameters. Okay, you as an LEA can make your rules as long as they fit within these guidelines. I think that's what we will see. I don't know that because I've not seen those rules yet, but I think that's what we'll be able to do.
So what we could possibly do, Bradley County doesn't necessarily have to, or McMinn County have.
That's exactly right. Now, I will tell you, our Southeast core, we're trying to work together because we understand a student may leave, for example, Bradley County and come to Cleveland City because they moved addresses or vice versa. So it would be nice if we're working off somewhat the same plan. It doesn't have to look exactly the same because even just here locally, our population and our student body is much different than what you would find in Bradley County or other counties. So, you know, we need to make sure we focus on what's best for our needs, but at the same time, we don't want to do something that's completely opposite if we can avoid it from other local districts. We're all trying to do the same thing. So the more we can play off of each other, the better off we'd be, but time will tell on that.
You know, you never know if what you read is correct or not, but they're saying that it doesn't seem to be as dangerous as it was at the beginning, because they're seeing fewer hospitalizations and fewer deaths, but more cases. So it may be more similar to the regular flu.
Sure.
Or not as serious.
Yeah.
So,
And a big part of this too, you know, we're concerned for our staff. You know,
Right.
our staff, you know, would be much older than our students in most cases. So, you know, we do want to make sure that whatever decisions we make, that our staff feels comfortable being at work and being in the buildings and being with a group of students too. So while our focus has to be on what's best for kids, we also have to really think about what's also good for our staff as far as their safety and their well-being goes as well. So those are all those different complicated pieces to the puzzle. This summer is not very calm. It's going to be a busy one, and we're going to all be scrambling to get things done, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. So
I can see teachers teaching behind a plexiglass. So they've got it everywhere at all the stores
I
and things.
know.
What is your thinking about especially football?
Yeah, you know, athletics right now, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I wish I had a magic ball on this one. You know, it could be anything. It could be that we have football and you do all the testing. You know I've heard NCAA is looking at every student athlete gets a test before they play the game, a couple hours before, and then every game that happens. Maybe you have people in the stands, maybe you don't. You know, I don't know how you pay for athletics if you don't have people paying for tickets. So all those things come into play. And that's going to be a tricky one for not just us, but for everyone involved. And
Tito list of White, they're like you, they don't know. The
No.
only thing they said is the same dead period.
Yeah.
Then sometime in, last week in June, or first week in July, no contact. And
Right.
they said maybe in July they might know.
Yeah, and I will tell you, our athletic directors and Doug Moore are doing a great job staying on top of what's going on with TSSAA. And we're not just doing it for athletics. I mean, band is a
Band
big
camp,
piece of this
yeah.
because of band camp and theater. We've been thinking about them, and even though it's the ADs and Doug, also the band directors are part of this, and other folks that do these big type of events. Because we need to make sure we're all on the same page. All of our coaches, anybody involved in summer activities, went through the last week of school a training on COVID-19. How do we disinfect? How do we take temperatures? How do we do all these things? For example, right now, football practices, before you go into our facilities or before it starts, you're having your temperature taken, just like if when I go get allergy shots, you can't walk in the door without getting your temperature taken and the questions asked. That's what we're doing. So we're trying to be as safe as we can, but still at the same time, we realize we have to open back up to a certain degree, but we're following all the protocols, less than 10 people and so forth at a time with a particular coach.
I wonder if people would be willing to make a donation so that we could maintain our sporting events and things. I don't know.
I'm sure they would, it's just like anything else, business has been hit hard
Right.
through this. So we're hoping we can keep our sponsors and
Yeah.
those kind of folks involved, but I also understand they have to survive and make a living as well.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of parents that really want us to have school and have our events.
Sure.
It's still a parent choice, though. If I didn't want my son to play football because I was concerned, then I would say, I'm sorry, son, you can't play. To add to Dr. Dyer's comments, we have a board meeting scheduled for June 15th, but we're not gonna do it then. So you take that off your calendars, and we're gonna wait until he has enough information to give us. And then we'll call a meeting and get a date where we can all meet, because we talked about this earlier, and there's just no point in having a meeting if we don't have anything.
So usually we kind of X the July one out. anyway.
Right, so it may be in July, but it may be the end of June, but as soon as he knows, he'll let me know and we'll.
As soon as we have concrete plans that we can bring to you, we're gonna do it, because we need to get it out in the community and saturate to make sure that people know what our plans are for next year. So we need to do that sooner rather than later, but we need to make sure we have our facts straight first, so.
The time's gonna come up so quickly. I wonder if they would consider starting school a little later so that you had time to get everything in place.
That's something that the state is looking at. Of course, that's an LEA decision.
Right.
That's our calendar. We can do, as a school board and staff, we can do whatever we want to do with that calendar. Even though it's been set in, from
Right.
2 years ago, nobody 2 years ago was looking at COVID-19 and where we are today. So looking at calendar could very well be something we have to come back and look at. And that's just something we will come to you with suggestions and scenarios, and then ask for you to
You
approve.
can look at those breaks different ways. You can say that's good distancing, everybody gets away, but then they travel and they bring back all the germs.
Yeah.
And then you don't know if they're more
Exactly.
contagious. I mean, and I have a feeling we'll see it more once the cold weather starts, like the flu, and then we might sail through the warm months and do better, and then, I mean, we just don't know.
Don't know,
This is such
that's
an
right.
unknown.
And it depends on what you read, so.
So,
But anyway,
you have your work cut out for you,
We
Dr.
do.
Dyer.
We appreciate you, Dr. Dyer.
thank you, and I appreciate the staff, because they work extremely hard on this.
My biggest concern of all that's up there is the intervention and remediation.
Right.
I think about those little kids that, especially kindergarten, well, first and second, they come back after 3 months, and they're, a lot of them, not all of them, are so far behind, and, it takes at least a month or two to catch them up, and I've thought about this so
Well,
much.
we're gonna be spending money out of that CARES Act fund for different benchmarking that we can really figure out where students are and then help them grow through technology. So whether they're at home, working through iReady, or back in the school building, it will help and it will adapt to them. It's adaptive technology that will go along with them, figure out where they are, and then build on those deficit skills to get them where they need to be. So we're gonna continue to work on that and spend some money on that this year too.
And I think each school and principal needs at some time to talk to parents, because I know, how parents sometimes, they just don't follow through, and so I think a meeting with, a required meeting of parents,
Yeah, and it may have to be virtual somehow, but
Right.
there's always a way, so
Right.
always a way.
Right, that's
Very good.
a big concern.
One more thing, if you had to phase them in, would you consider having a longer school day so that people would have enough time?
It just
It's
depends.
just so much.
Yeah, it just depends on a lot of things. One, we don't want to overwork our
Right,
teachers
that's
and staff.
teachers.
And you get into overtime when you're talking about
Yeah.
classified personnel, so that can get really expensive in a hurry. So there are a lot of factors that go into that.
Wow.
So that's just, there are a lot of questions that have to be answered.
A lot of
For sure.
opportunities.
Yes, yes, a lot of opportunities.
We
Good way to put
that one word.
Try to be positive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my update. It's a long one today, but we haven't had time to physically meet, so it's good to do that.
Well, you can move on with the strategic plan then, if you will.
Strategic plan, we'll move right into that, and we'll go to the first slide, or second slide that says the plan on Dr. Raper. Good, all right. At your desk, and you also had this sent to you, you have a copy of it's still a draft plan because you as school board members have to approve a strategic plan, and you may want to make some changes or suggestions or whatever the case to this. So the strategic plan has several areas of focus, and those have included student success, safe and healthy schools, communications, engaged workforce, and also our portrait of a graduate and what we've decided to call the 5 C's. And you'll hear more about that here in just a few minutes. The strategic planning teams began work in December. Our steering committee took off at that point. Now, back in the first semester, we did have a student discipline committee that worked that first semester to really put together a plan looking at that one particular group because we wanted to think about restorative justice. We wanted to think about capturing kids' hearts, and we needed more time than just a semester. So that committee with Doug and others, they really dove into that first semester. But as far as strategic planning itself, we got to work really in December, mainly in January. And it consisted of, the different committees consisted of board members, we had school administrators, AOB administrators, teachers, we had parents, as well as community members involved in the committee or committees, because it was really important to get as much input as you can when you're making one of these big plans. This is our roadmap for 5 years, and these are the things that we're going to be working hard to really work on. So the plans have been adapted, from where we started. When we started back in January, I don't think the word COVID, I first heard it maybe in February. So, and even at that time, really didn't know what it was until March. So here we are in a new reality. It's not exactly where we thought we would be. And because of that, we've had to adapt some things in our strategic plan. But regardless, we know that we're here now. We know what we need to be working on. We think that we've come up with a plan that is very thorough. And this is going to be what you have is the outward appearance of the strategic plan for the community and for stakeholders. Behind the scenes, we will have a very much more in-depth type of plan that will really be the nuts and bolts of what happens on a day-to-day basis in order to meet these goals that are listed here. So we also know that as we go, adaptations may need to be made. Next year we get into school and, I'm just saying we have to close for 3 or 4 weeks again. Well, that's going to change our plan again, because how can you meet certain goals if you're not in school physically for 3 or 4 weeks? That's just an example. So again, the roadmaps through 2025, our keywords that you'll find throughout here are educate, innovate, and elevate. Those are the buzzwords. Those are really the words we're going to focus on because it covers so much of what we're trying to do. And the hashtag of Rise Cleveland continues. We want to continue to be responsive, innovative, student-centered, and engaged with our community. That's something that we've really tried to live by. We are using that hashtag on Twitter, on Instagram, and other things, but it's more than just a hashtag. I mean, it really is a way that we can publicly tell the community, these are the things we're trying to do. So with that, I'm going to call on various folks to come in and present the areas that they've worked on. Feel free to ask questions, ask for input, whatever you might have. we're gonna ask first for Dr. Elliott, Student Success, and I don't know who else he might have, just Dr. Elliott. Okay, good. Let's come on in and share about the plan as it's written here.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Our plan was focused on student success, and that included academic success related to all our core academics, but also related to STEAM education, along with pathways as far as post-secondary pathways education. We had a great team. We actually had 3 teams to begin the semester with. We had one that was focused on the core academics and student success, and then we had a team that was led by Ms. Bender and Dr. Barnes related to STEAM education. And then Mr. Wittenbarger led our Pathways Committee. And then around spring break, we came together, the 3 teams, to pull this together for our all-encompassing student success. And in the plan that you see before you related to student success, we hit some of the higher points in here. There are a lot of more moving parts into more details related to this, but on this page, you'll see the high points. First of all, the goal reads, provide excellence in equity and instruction and programs for student success. And we knew that that was important, and even more today, here where we are now, is that equity piece, looking at how we bridge those gaps across the board. And so we talked about that some, but we continue to know that that is a goal that we're going to have to work on over the next 5 years. As you see in there are 5 action steps that are listed on this plan. One, first of all, is where we're always looking at is delivering a strong curriculum with wonderful, excellent instructional practices going on that our teachers follow through with, and that will always be a driving force of what we're about, I know, in Cleveland City Schools. The highlights of that over the next 5 years will be determined on the curriculum that we are adopting and purchasing. So recently we purchased some ELA curriculum, and we were excited about that, and thank you to the board for approving that funding, and that has arrived to our schools, and our teachers have access to it over the summer to prepare for that at the elementary level, and we're excited. So over the next couple of years, we are going to really spend a lot of time on that ELA curriculum. And then later, as you see in the plan in 2023, new math materials and standards are coming down the pike, and that is the plan. So the second half of this 5-year plan, as far as the core curriculum, will be focused on math.
Can I stop for a second? Let me ask Steve. Can you see Dr. Elliott, Steve?
We have another one up here that's.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Maybe if you were over here by Dr. Dyer, because that computer's kind of aimed.
Okay.
See that computer there on the table? It's kind of. Can you see Dr. Dyer, Steve?
You see Dr. Dyer?
I can't see anybody, remember?
That's pretty good.
There you go.
Okay, I'm embarrassed now. You see, Steve, you do so well. I just forget all the time that you can't see.
No problem.
Can you hear him okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Can you hear?
I can hear well.
That was a quick comeback,
I'm so sorry, Steve.
That's all right.
That's a great one. Oh, my goodness. Okay, thank you, Dr. Elliott. Sorry for the interruption.
So as we move forward, some of the other areas here are STEAM education, and we are excited this spring to receive the STEM designation from the state of Tennessee for the Cleveland High School, and our plan is to pursue more designations at other levels, the middle school and elementary schools, because we believe we have some excellent things happening. We want to continue to grow STEM. We also, the state refers to it as the Tennessee STEM designation, but in Cleveland City Schools, we've really done an excellent job with the arts over the years, and we want to continue to make sure that that is included and a high point of that. So arts, we included the A into that to call it for our strategic plan, our STEAM initiative. And so that's listed there. The pathways, we continue to look at ways to prepare our students for post-secondary opportunities. When they leave high school, we want them to be prepared for college, career, or life in general. And we have a plan here in place that Mr. Wittenbarger and his team put together. One of those we're excited about is the CAPS program, a Capstone program, where we focus on professional studies, even at the high school level, providing opportunities for students to go out in the professional field to have that opportunity for experience. This first year coming up, as we introduce this, and we join an international CAPS network that some of us had opportunity to visit and see firsthand. That's our goal, is to join that this summer and be a part of a network with other school systems, not only in the United States, but they've also bridged out across other countries as well. So we want to join that and then be a part of that CAPS network, and at least by this fall, introduce 100 of our seniors into a professional field and have an experience, an internship of some sort. So that's our first goal with that. Plan, develop, and expand the BLADE one-to-one initiative. We have had a wonderful experience with that over the last 3 to 4 years, of course, at the secondary level, and more than ever, our goal is to continue to grow that at the 3rd through 5th grade level. And then at some point in the 5 years, we want to be able to address the K2 level and what that looks like. That'll take a little bit of time. However, the timeline might be a little earlier than what we anticipated, and trying to get that at least to the upper elementary students with funding that we could have available through the CARES Act funds that was already discussed earlier. And then the last one on there was continue to engage all our students in this diverse learning environment. An important aspect of it is to reach all our students. We know that we have a diverse population. Ms. Duncan and Mr. Stone on our team work with our teachers and our staff and try to find ways to address all our students in different ways as far as ESL, special populations, and so that will continue to be a strong goal from our academic side of things. So student success, and the timeline and more details are listed there. The last piece I did want to mention is one of the aspects that we had already begun doing a lot of preliminary work, site visits, researching information, was about virtual school. The Virtual School of Cleveland here in Cleveland to offer that. And we desire to start that this coming school year. Again, that might be a little bigger and more robust than even what our initial anticipation and intentions were. However, we're continuing to put some touches on that this month as we work with our team on virtual school planning. We're excited about that opportunity and being able to do it, and we're glad that we had already begun that. Dr. Aker and I were talking last week that as we were meeting about that, and we were saying, I was so glad we had done some work previous to this so that we already had some groundwork and some foundational work already completed. So we'll have more details to come here in the next few weeks. So,
Jeff, will you remind me again the schools in our system that are designated as STEM distinction? Cleveland High School right now. Yes, we applied. It's about a year-long process to fill out a big application process and for teachers to complete some activities and provide details related to that, along with some students doing some things. So there is some work to be done. So Cleveland High School now. And again, the next step is to pursue our middle and some of our elementary schools and continue to add to that. Because I think I remember reading that in the paper a couple of months ago, and there were a couple of elementary schools mentioned, but I didn't remember.
Probably Bradley County, they had a couple of.
Yeah, there were some in the Bradley County schools in elementary. We were proud that we're one of very few, I'd say, traditional high schools that were recognized in the state of Tennessee for STEM designation. I know there are some high schools that have been recognized, but we're one of few, especially in this region.
He's downplaying it a little bit. They worked extremely hard. Dr. Elliott, Mr. Winbarger, Ms. O'Brien, a whole team of them. It's not just a little application. It is a tremendous process to get to the point where you're getting designated as a Tennessee STEM school. It's probably one of the more stringent awards academically that you can get for a school. So very proud of the effort they put in and time, and we can't wait to move on. Well, I say that. I think this team's gonna work really hard on behind the scenes to make it happen with the principals and teachers, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Do you have to redo it every year?
It's a 5-year designation, so recognition. So our goal is, as we go through this 5-year plan, at the end of the 5 years, that we'd be looking at that again and seeing where we are as far as Cleveland High School goes. We did get news when we had the announcement of that a few weeks ago now, when we were on the virtual call about the announcement that they surprised us with a $10,000 grant that went with it, that we had no idea that was going to be a part of it. And so Cleveland High School will be able to use that towards STEM education. And so we're very glad.
Is it more difficult at the secondary level than it is at the elementary? I would think there were a lot more components in 6-12 maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. At the high school level, there's a lot of work-based components related to it. And so, yes, we have to make sure that's articulating up as far as providing that work-based education. And what we'll need to do at the elementary level is to continue to make that connection in the industry areas as well. And we did make a step forward this year because we were one of the pilot districts with the Tennessee, different CAPS, but a Tennessee chamber. We were one of 5 or 6 pilot districts to do some initiatives trying to promote industry education at the elementary level. With the early dismissal this year, we didn't get to complete that process, but we tried to get a step forward with that. So there'll be some resources to come with that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions on student success area?
Looks pretty industrious.
Yes, one of the things that I think we want to keep in mind as we go forward with this, and I was on the committee that looked at this, the STEM and the STEAM.
Yes.
And, you know, I want to make sure that here in Cleveland that we do put focus on the STEAM, because we know how much art that we do here in Cleveland. So I want us to make sure that we, you know, always put that in the forefront as well.
Definitely. Good point. Yeah. All right.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll bring in our next 2 presenters.
Yes.
More, 3.
Steve, I hope you can see them when they come in.
Hey, you should see Steve on the hoverboard. You see that? It's great, Steve.
Thank you, sir. I did listen to the attachments though, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Safe and healthy schools is the next section of the strategic plan. And this, of course, is the large umbrella category that covers anything from activities and clubs to school nutrition to safety and discipline. As we were meeting with our 3 different subcommittees in this group, we struggled just a little bit with some activities and clubs, things to implement in the strategic plan currently with the COVID-19 situation and not knowing what upcoming school year is going to look like. So it's always, I think, key to understand that planning could change. And so additions, of course, will probably be made to this. I'll let Doug talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But as far as school nutrition goes, I think the key component that we were looking for this year was to make sure that we're involving students in feedback and what they're looking for, and in taking those results from those feedbacks and showing an action plan or implementation plan to make that better. And then also initiating down the road, just a little bit, as you can see on your timeline, the surveys for staff and faculty, and then also community members down the road to be able to do that as well. I think, as you can see under the rationale piece there, that Cleveland City Schools must provide safe and secure environment during all school-sponsored programs, and that includes wellness and just general welfare, the whole child, including that in this piece of the puzzle. So.
Just to address our activities and clubs piece, we will be revisiting that. And like Gina said, with the current situation, we kind of just tabled that for time being. But our focus area on that was going to be, what does it mean to participate in an activity club. What does a student at Cleveland High School gain from participating in any extracurricular activities at our school? And we know what that brings for a child's life and what it brings to a student in school to participate in sports and activities. But more of a deeper focus was what is more along the line of a mission statement. What is the purpose of our activities? What's the purpose for our sports? It's not just to win. It's not just to have something to do, but it's for our students to gain something from that, to be enriched by it, and for us to be enriched by our students too. So that was kind of our focus. We were looking at doing that, but we're going to come back to that. The other area was safety and discipline. And on the action steps here, you see the two main focuses in those areas were capturing kids' hearts, which is an initiative we have invested in with our school system. We've invested in it with the middle school and the high school, and it only makes sense that we bring that down to our elementary level schools as well, because the program itself is building relationships that are so important between our faculty and our students. That's the way I believe you make a change, is that you foster those relationships. And Capturing Kids' Hearts is a research-based program that does that. It has a great track record. So and we're bought in with it. So we want to bring that down to the elementary levels. The other area that we were concentrating on is discipline. We've talked about discipline. We've talked about the need to look at discipline in a different light. The old days of suspending students out of school, expelling them out, putting them in exclusionary discipline practices, those days are over. There are exceptions to situations, and that we're not saying that there's not a place for that sometimes, but there's work that has to be done to make sure, hopefully, we don't get to that with some students. Because what we have now is a situation in which discipline builds upon itself. A student can have several minor issues, and all of a sudden, now, based on how discipline has been done in the past, not just our school system, all school systems, then students reach a certain point where they have to be suspended out of school. Suspending students out of school, excluding them from the learning process, is not good for anybody. It doesn't, it very rarely changes the behavior, it just pushes it back. Out of sight, out of mind, they have to come back to school, and then we're dealing with the same problem. So what we've done is, we're going to look at what is called the RTI 2B, which is response to intervention for behavior. The University of Tennessee has a great program for that we can look into. A big part of, though, is the idea of ACEs and understanding adverse childhood experiences. What is getting to, for our school system to be able to take inventories of these adverse childhood experiences that children have, what causes behavior, what issues are they dealing with, addressing those issues through counseling, and the way and part of our goal as well is to establish relationships with community agencies, provide mental health services for at-risk students. That's in our, what does success look like? And so if we are going to take an inventory of those ACEs, and our teachers have to be trained on that. We have teachers in our system, school counselors who have been trained on ACEs inventories, taking those inventories. And we need to, and our teachers have to be trained on that as well, so that we can have an understanding of what's going on, so we can treat the whole child. That's really what we're looking at with that. And then RTI it's a tiered approach in which a lot of student behaviors are going to fall into that first tier, which can be anything from disrespect to defiance to a number of those type of discipline issues. And then you kind of work up to tier 2. It's going to involve a smaller group of students, but these are issues and discipline infractions that you can handle. And then there's that top tier, which are really, best way to put it is those really hard cases. Those kids that are the ones that you're suspending out of school, the ones that you're expelling out of school, and working with those students.
Doug, could you still use this virtual school program with those students that you do have to take out of school? So, while you were working on their mental health, they could still maintain their credits and their classes and their education?
Absolutely, absolutely. We hope to be able to utilize that as a tool. I think you're right. It kind of goes, the virtual school piece, and not to get, and that's kind of Jeff's, area. But what I see with the virtual school and the things it's going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to address those students who might have to go out of school for a little while, to be able to keep them academically on task. At the same time, you're responsible for educating students at the juvenile detention center. That is our responsibility. Because it's located in Cleveland City Schools and in Cleveland City. So your LEA is responsible for that. We can use that with those students as well. That had to be there. So it's going to allow us to do a lot of things.
If you can get them through high school, it would make a difference in the whole rest of their lives, because once they get expelled from school, they may never get a diploma, and they never get over it.
No one is a teenager forever.
Right.
And the things that teenagers do sometimes, I certainly don't want to be judged on what I did between the time I was 13 and when I was 18 years old. I'm glad y'all can't go back and look at those records.
Is that why you live across the state?
You had to come to East Tennessee to get away from West Tennessee. No. But those years pass by, and the mistakes that kids make then should not have to haunt them.
Yeah.
So we've changed our discipline policy somewhat, but are you saying we're gonna have some major changes in those, like, we have the level 1, the level 2, the level 3, and all the dictates that would go with those? Are those going to change?
Yes, some of those are going to change, but it's important to note that our middle school and high school have been doing some of this. This is not going to be revolutionary to them. They have been pulling in some of these, using some of these tactics with students, and so this is just going to be building upon that a little bit. But you're going to see some changes in our discipline and the infractions and what constitutes a suspension, and then what has to happen before we get there. You did this, now you have to leave. There has to be something that happens between you did this and then you have to leave. There's some work has to be done.
The other side of that coin is the disruptive student in a classroom. The other students that are behaving themselves are due the right to have a good class without that disruption. So we have to, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but you have to think about those students too who are behaving, and they can't be losing instructional time because of that student who is misbehaving.
Exactly, and hopefully that's where the Capturing Kids' Hearts piece comes in. Okay. Because you've done the work inside the classroom with the kids. You've created those relationships, so it creates a learning environment. If we've done what we're supposed to do with that and we've done it correctly, then we have less and less of those disruptions.
Doug, this going down to elementary is huge. I think, because you and I have dealt with this one, and I forget the title, but this new specialist is going to help us. What's the title of that? The safety, aren't they going to help some with that? And
Supervisor, student services, and energy management.
That could be, because you got a large area to cover there, and that person can help. Right. That right?
That's the big idea of it is to help do some of these things and put some of these
balls into motion now. And a big part of what we have to do is professional development with our teachers and staff and get them trained on all these different things. And we have to remember, not all this is gonna happen year one. This is a 5-year approach, so we don't wanna overwhelm anybody. If all this had to be done in 1 year, I think I might quit.
Right.
So this is a 5-year, all of these different areas we're talking about, this is over 5 years, not all in 1 year. So year one, it's not gonna look as good as it will at year 5. It takes time, so just keep that in mind too.
Something I wanted to bring up though, before we move off of the safe and healthy schools is our commitment to the parent responsibility zones. And I'm concerned if we don't have making our schools more walkable as part of our 5-year plan, that we're gonna be facing that down the road and we've not implemented a plan to get there. So I would like to advocate to have the walkability of schools be as part of our 5-year plan in this area, not only to make it clear that it's a priority of ours, but also to lay the groundwork so that if it's 5 years from now that we have to enforce that, or if it's 10 years from now, that we can be working with the city to get that funding and that planning and budgeting on their part to help do it in pieces and allow us to get to that point to where when we make those parents' responsibility zones, we've got walkable schools. Because I think it was Peggy and Dawn and maybe Carolyn, we drove around to some of to the schools, and there are some problematic areas that really need to be addressed before I would feel comfortable expecting elementary students to make that switch.
So I guess I understand what you're saying, but what would the city schools commitment to that be? Because if we're talking about sidewalks, that's not really something that we do.
But it could be much like what they've got here, the establishing relationships with community agencies for the mental health. We could have it as an action plan to work with the city, to work on making progress towards because they're willing to, they'll build sidewalks, but we can't expect them to do all of them all at once. And if we have it on our strategic plan, they see that coming down the pike and they can make plans in their budget to allow for that. If it's not on our strategic plan and we go to them and say, hey, we need sidewalks, they might come back and say, that's a great idea, but we didn't budget for it. So at least this way we can make that clear that that's a plan and a priority of ours and work with them to make that happen.
Okay.
Or at least make progress.
Better. And because I was thinking maybe it was a capital.
And it could be.
A thing for us, like when we do our capital plan.
And it could be, and if that's the way it needs to be addressed.
I don't know.
I felt that it fell under the safety and the wellness, because those were really some of the issues that we came across.
right.
And since we wouldn't be paying for them.
Yeah, if it's okay, I might ask Mr. Taylor to come up here as well, since it kind of falls in his area. That way he can maybe address where we are with
That's a
walkability
great
zones and things too. 'Cause it's a good point.
Suggestion too,
It's a good
Krista,
point.
because, we don't want to pop that out again and scare everybody to death if we haven't been working with the city to establish those
Right.
sidewalks and those walking areas, because we know, go ahead.
Actually, we have been,
Okay.
we contact with Greg Thomas a good bit. Actually, what you've seen down at Blythe Bower is a large part of what's going on there is because of concerns, as you know, from a couple of the councilmen. And so that actually made an impact. We have some bus stops, covered bus stops that we share now with Sethra because of Greg Thomas in the city reaching out to us. The traffic department has reached out to us for putting stop signs by our schools, like down at Arnold. Same thing. So we have that started with the city, and they are asking where our bus stops are and to the walk zone. So I think we've got a good start with that already, and we got a good relation with them. So I think we could take your suggestion and build on that.
Sure.
If that's something that.
So would it best be in the strategic plan, Dr. Dar, like Krista suggested?
I certainly don't have a problem with that. We can put it in both places. I mean,
Both places,
that's
okay.
absolutely fine with me. That's why I said when I started with this is a draft plan that you have to approve. So if we could move forward with, if it's okay with approval of this plan, with the addition of whatever line we need to put in there that goes with that. And then as we build the 5-year plan, which we usually do for presentation in October, that could be part of that 5-year plan update as well.
The Greenways have been a big help with that walkability too, haven't they?
Right.
The high school for sure.
For the high school, that's been great for the high school.
So I know.
Go for Candy's Creek when that one comes through.
Look at Yates and Ross are our major concerns because of location Mouse Creek Road, Peerless Road, all of those, and, you know, look how long it's taken them to do the sidewalk from West Lee Methodist over to Cleveland State and, you know, all of that. But look at the situation at Ross Yates. That is the other schools, I can kind of
Well, even
understand.
Stewart, you know, one street over, that Park Avenue, it's a
Right.
dead end. You have to go out to Georgetown Road and walk.
Right.
And you think right there, we'd have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance to look at Blythe Bower and what they've done down there, it's been excellent.
Yeah.
And they're still continuing for 2 more years. So when they get done there, I mean, you're gonna have a clear, safe path all the way to the school from the old school and that park all the way down. So no matter what you do.
Right.
So how do you think Krista's suggestion to put this in our strategic plan would really get the attention or keep the attention of the city to know that that's something that we're working toward and we need to stay on their radar? Do you think that would be helpful?
Yes, ma'am, I think there, and like Dr. Dyer said, maybe put them in both.
Yeah.
Because I know they're gonna be looking at a few of it, showing interest in the 5-year and even the long range, so.
Yep.
Great suggestion,
Yep.
Krista. Thank you.
So I know that, I think I saw Gina writing some things, and I know Julie got that as well. If it's okay, we can go ahead and move that in, and when the final copy comes out, it'll have that as an added piece to it.
Can I ask
Sure.
Gina something? Back to school nutrition.
Yes, sir.
We're in the process of approving the contract with Sodexo for the high school, and I assume eventually that'll go to the middle school, all this, but my concern is elementary. Do you see any time in the future where some freedom will be going back to the cafeteria managers so he or she can start like they used to be when I taught, making those decisions and making their own weekly menus and doing their ordering and things like that, as opposed to getting a copy of something from someone and saying on Monday, you'll do this, Tuesday, you'll do this, Wednesday, you'll do this, to satisfy the students and the teachers more, to have a little bit more variety in the elementary system.
We are working on that. When the Healthy Hunger for Kids Act came out in 2010, we had to pretty much go to centralized menus to be able to meet the meal pattern requirements.
Yeah.
And so we've been transitioning away from that a little bit at a time. Currently, the managers and assistant managers are in meetings with me on a yearly basis to help reset those menus. But we try to do it where we can put it in the software program where it publishes it out to parents. Anybody who wants to see it can view that online. So they are in those meetings to help set those menus, but we try to keep them as consistent as we can through the week. They have some flexibility within that, though, that they can accommodate their student body preferences and those sorts of things. But if we can put that out to the public so they can kind of see what's coming, it helps us with ordering to keep it more consistent, to keep inventory levels down and those types of things. But yes, that is going back
Of
to.
course, maybe all cafeteria managers might not be interested in doing that. You know, they might like that just cut and dried monthly.
But I think it's important that they know how that menu pattern works, how that meal plan is supposed to work. And especially with the unknown circumstances that we're in currently, if they have to replace something, they need to know where to pull from and how to do that. Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Work, y'all.
We'll move now to communications and go through this section. And in this section, you're going to also include the other handout that you have, which is the visual style guide. So I know that will probably reference as Dr. Raper and Ms. Smith here go through this together. I don't know who's doing what. So cool.
Yeah, so Julie and I co-chaired this committee together, and this was a communications committee. And specifically, the goal was Cleveland City Schools will communicate with all stakeholders in the media through multiple effective and efficient mediums. And so we kind of break that down into 3 areas, and you'll see that in the action steps. So the first action step is to develop a holistic communication strategy, and that's going to encompass brand usage, and then also publicity in general. And so what we're about to look at, the visual style guide, will be a part of that, but not the total package, because we'll also add other stuff to that about how Cleveland City Schools communicates and really put it together in a nice form. As you'll see on the timeline, we're calling it the communications playbook. The second thing is to streamline internal and external communications by establishing clear and effective methods of disseminating information to all stakeholders. We do a great job of getting information out there, but I think we can do a better job. So are we getting it and putting it out there in the way that families need? Are we reaching them at the point where they would, or the method of which they would prefer to be communicated with? Are we over communicating? So it's all these things that we're looking at to make sure that it's streamlined, reaching the stakeholders exactly the way they would prefer to be communicated with. Now, along with that, but kind of separate, 24% of families actually in Cleveland City Schools have a non-English language background. So if we're saying we want to communicate to those families and we want to communicate to everybody, we have to specifically target those in their preferred language. So our third action step is to ensure that Cleveland City Schools is effectively communicating to every family in their native language. And so that's going to be from district interpretation, where we have personnel, or it's also going to be from some technology tools. So if you see on the timeline next year, we already plan to put a software called Talking Points out there for teachers to use. And so that will allow those daily communications where a teacher needs to go, hey, your kid didn't turn in their homework today. Or, hey, your kid was a little tired, like is something going on at home? So those daily communications between the teacher and the parents can happen in their preferred language, and they auto-translate. And then if you look through there, it's also going to have establishing a full-time district level interpreter and increasing budgets for interpretation services at schools. So those are kind of the three facets. Yeah.
How many different languages do we have?
You know, I pulled that list today. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15.
Wow.
Christy Duncan would definitely be able to tell you, but the list I saw today, because we were getting talking points set up, I think it had about 15 different languages.
And so this software just translates, like.
Yeah, have you?
And it changes.
Are you all familiar with like the Remind app that parents use? So people can subscribe to be part of a class, and then you can send out information. It's kind of that kind of thing, except it's being more automated. So we will automatically push out and say, these students are in these teachers' classes. So when the teacher logs in, all the students are there. We've automatically pulled in the contact information, and then it just gets translated into their language that we're telling it this is what they prefer. And then when it comes back, it gets translated back into English.
Oh, wow. That is very cool.
It's a pretty cool tool. We're excited about it.
That's amazing.
Technology.
Oh, yeah. Goodness gracious. I'm sure those parents appreciate that too, just being able to communicate. You know, my son didn't do his homework, and get that in so I can understand it.
You know, as we were writing this, we originally put in, so if you look at the last line of success, it says interpreting services or technologies are available to support the holistic needs of students and their families. I think the original word we had there was academics. It's like, well, we do a lot more than that. So we really do want to target, hey, you didn't do your homework. But then it's also those communications that we would have with families of, Joe seemed a little sad today, is everything okay? And just making sure that they're holistically taken care of, which also goes back to where the state's really pushing right now, is the holistic student, the whole child. Before we go into the style guide, any other questions about the 5-year plan? Good. So we do have for your consideration today a new logo.
Public unveiling right here. Here we go.
So this logo is more than just a symbol. It also had some different things that we wanted to make sure got included. So we do have the Cleveland Power C, and then you'll see it around it is the shield. The shield is divided into 4 parts. The 4 parts representing the 4 divisions of the 5-year strategic plan, just really show our focus on that. So communications, engaged workforce, and I know these by heart, but student success and safe and healthy schools are the 4 different parts of the shield. Under it, you'll see Cleveland City Schools, and then our tagline, educate, innovate, elevate. So that's where we're going with that. Anything else you want to say about the logo?
No, it's this has gone through several renditions, and I think we have landed on something that we can be proud of. This will, of course, be on letterhead. It'll be on signage as we get the funds appropriate to put new signage out and things such as that. That's not the most important thing we have going right now. So those kind of things, this will be our public image, and this is what we'll be using for anything that we're putting up for the public from here out.
One of the goals we had is, when you think of Cleveland, you think of the Cleveland Power C. So we wanted to establish our identity using that, but it also is a little bit distinct from the high school because we're using the shield and those kind of things to represent all the Cleveland City schools. And so in your style guide, you'll see that we've laid out tons of information about brand usage, but we also have different versions of the logo. So we have the vertical logo, we have the horizontal logo that's going to fit on different items better. In fact, that may be what gets used on some business cards. And then we also have it without the tagline. And then we can use just the shield by itself. In fact, you see that used a lot in the strategic plan. We've just been using the C to represent Cleveland City Schools with the shield.
Cody, the only thing I see is, and I've already been questioned about this by my wife, who is in the first graduating class from Cleveland High School, is where did all the other colors come from, since Cleveland High School was blue and white? And, I see that, on this, I see the red in this, I see the, like the uniforms that the boys have been, some of the basketball games and things like this, where do these other colors come from when the Cleveland High School colors are blue and white? That's the question that I've been asked more than once.
So Krill Higgins told me that the colors were blue and white with a touch of red. That's what he told me. And so red's not our predominant, but it's supposed to be a touch.
Touch. I hadn't heard that.
That was from Krill, but now, Dr. Yates is who chose those things, I believe.
Which touches me.
Isn't it Dr. Yates, who made these choices for the school colors? Wasn't it Dr. Yates?
So.
I always heard it was a hint of red.
Okay, a hint of touch.
Well, when you go through here, Cody, you want to say something about it? I know you pulled up the screen.
Yeah, I was going to say, so these are the three specific colors that Cleveland High School uses in their current style guide. And so that's where the system adopted those colors from. I will say the rowdy blue and the Raider gray are just because we traditionally use a lighter color to represent Cleveland City Schools. So they were just an accent colors that you will see on the sides, but definitely not as primary colors. But yeah, the red, white, and blue are.
I have not had a problem with it. I went to another high school.
But keep in mind, this is for the city schools, not just the high school.
Yeah.
So it can kind of expand and be a little bit more.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. This is not just Cleveland High School. It does represent the whole school system as far as that goes. But I have learned that Cleveland City Schools alumni from back in that period are very picky about colors and schemes, and that's okay, and that's all right. Because everybody has a thought on it. But the newer alumni and students have a little different look at it too. So part of the progressiveness of the school system, maybe, I don't know. That goes along with that, but it is.
Incorporate colors from the different elementary schools. So
Yeah.
You've got the rowdy blue is similar to what Candy's Creek uses. You've got the red that Arnold uses.
Right.
So you've got a way of bringing in some of the elementary school colors.
Sure.
To make them part as well.
Yeah. We're not gonna come up with something crazy like, UT that one year came out with the Halloween uniform or something, don't expect something like that anytime.
Yeah.
But, we are gonna try to stick within these primary colors that we have here.
On this department logos, Dawn and I think Krista was talking, like, we go to the state school board meeting, that same thing where you got, whatever, then you could put one with school board underneath.
Yeah,
We have that.
we have that, yeah, we
Just talked about, they have the
that
time
and
over when
director
you were there.
Yeah, right.
But where you got the lines there, it would be good to have one in the school
Absolutely.
board.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes,
At the
absolutely.
state school board convention.
Yeah, I agree.
So the last thing I'll say about it in general, and I won't bore you with all the stuff I find interesting all throughout here, but it was We were trying to build on the brand that Cleveland City Schools has. It has a well-established brand in Cleveland. It's a brand of integrity. It's a brand that people like, while also still bringing in some modern characteristics, trying to meet all of this, so.
So I am very proud of the work the communications group has done, and, you know, Quantel, our designer, and this went back and forth several times, and Dr. Rapern's crew would email me something that's like, let's think about this, and then we'd go back and forth, try it again, and we did that throughout the whole style guide and the document for strategic plan. So I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and I'm glad that you like it as well. And we're gonna send this to the media so that they have the style guide and can use the official logos for anything they do regarding Cleveland City Schools. We have trademarked this, so we're gonna keep this trademarked and officially ours at this point, so that anyone who uses it with that permission, we can make sure they have permission to use it. Let's put it that way, in a positive spin. So that's great, and I'm proud of the work they've done.
It's very clean, it's very classy. Krista,
I was just gonna
sorry.
say, I would recommend, just for us old people that our vision is impaired, once you get this kind of set up, this does lose a little bit of the contrast, so I would limit this use maybe.
The two color usage, it gets
The red
blue,
on the
yeah.
blue, unless you outlined it in white or black, just because that contrast gets
Yeah.
lost and it's hard to read. But that's my only suggestion.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. We'll move to almost last but not least. We're not quite to the end. Engaged workforce. Mr. Kaiser.
How's everybody? Am I supposed to stand here where Steve can see me?
Where the X is.
Because if that works, Cody's getting a raise. Just going to take you real quickly through engaged workforce. Thank Charlie, he was on our committee. We did a lot of good work. I think we had a lot of really good people on our committee. You'll see that our goal for engaged workforce is to provide a diverse, high-quality educational staff throughout our school district, not just in our schools, but in our district offices and other places where we need to look at that. And then I'm going to skip down to the rationale, because I think we got to talk about why this is important before we talk about what we're going to do. It's important, of course, to expose our students to world-class educators, irregardless. They need to be world-class educators no matter where they're coming to us from. But also it's important that we expose our students to educators that represent their cultures and their backgrounds, so they not only receive that education, but they also get a richer perspective for what they might be able to do. Currently, this is a bit of a challenge for us. If you looked at our teaching staff right now, we're at about 90% white, and our student population is about 54% white. So that's why we talked about addressing these things and talking about these issues. And these are some of the things that we're going to do, Cody. So if you'll scroll back down for me, I'll run through those action steps. First is to change our recruiting. We've been talking about addressing diversity for a long time. It is something that is difficult to do, but it's very difficult to do if you don't change anything you're doing in recruiting to get a diverse staff. So one of those is to increase our social media use. Another proactive approach is in teacher recruiting. It is to get people to understand who we are. And you'll see pieces of that, people from the outside. I think we assume a lot of times that people understand where Cleveland is and that we're a great school system, all those things. But when I go recruiting, most people think I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. So we have to get the message out. We do have a great product, but we need other people to see that we have a great product and a community where they would want to come and live and raise their families and do those kind of things. The second is to change recruiting and documentation to engage more minority candidates. We actually tried to start doing that this year, and then COVID kind of slammed the door on us. But if we continue to go to where we have traditionally gone, which is universities that actually mirror our current teaching population, we're going to have the same thing. So adding historically black colleges and other places to our recruiting list, to our recruiting trail, so to speak, will hopefully make that a little easier for us to address our issues. We're going to create a staff advisory committee. I think that we gained, I think Charlie would tell you the same thing. I gained a lot of knowledge from just sitting with the people that we had on our committee, listening to their thoughts, their ideas, It's a very diverse group. They had thought of things that I had not thought of us needing to do. So I think we can glean lots of knowledge from that group. And then the next thing is develop a teacher pipeline for paraprofessionals and current students to enter the teaching profession. The thing I would tell you, if we're really going to address diversity and having high quality educators that are diverse, we're not going to recruit them to get close. If you look at the educator prep programs, they're now 85% white. So if we're going to really address that, we're going to have to look at individuals of a diverse nature that are on our staff already, as maybe paraprofessionals or other places, or we're going to have to look at our students, and encourage them to come back and be teachers, and why teaching is a good profession to be in. For example, one area that's going to be very, very difficult to address from recruiting is the Hispanic population in Cleveland, and our student population is about 25%. Well, EPPs are only turning out about 2.6% of theirs are Hispanic. So if we're going to address that, we're going to have to grow our own, and we're going to have to figure out how to do that.
Kelly, could I add to that? I really was pushing, I know Walker Valley and Bradley, they have an intro to education class at the high school. And both of them have gone very well with it, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's going to take a year or so to get that introduced, but I really would like to follow up on that. Get kids interested. Maybe, they don't understand about it. Because all of us that were teacher, we didn't really do any student teaching until our last year of college, and everything. But I think it's going good at the other two high schools. We really need to look at adding intro to education or teaching or whatever we need to do.
I agree. We train every other profession.
That's
We need to train people to
Right.
be teachers. So that's part of it. So I
I don't know when we can get that in, but the sooner the better, I think.
Right.
Haven't we done a little bit of that with our leadership class? Because I know of some students that have done some teaching to younger students in leadership.
We do what I would say you kind of traditionally do they're given a group and they're not really trained to teach. They're not getting into the pedagogy of teaching. They're not doing more of an in-depth thing. Now they are providing information and they are interacting with kids, which is obviously great, but it's not kind of to the depth that I would say you would get into in an intro to education course.
Yes, I agree.
And then the last step that we have on here is develop district core values and beliefs along with a plan for marketing those beliefs through social media. One of the things that's important when you're trying to attract people from the outside, if we talk about any of the major corporations, Apple, you kind of know what those people stand for. You kind of know what it means to come and work for those groups. So we need to put those things down on paper. We actually have those down on paper. We need to have a plan for how we get that word out to others across Cleveland, first of all, our own staff, but also across the state to those people so they understand, all right, if I work at Cleveland City Schools, this is what they expect. This is what it means to be a part of Cleveland City Schools. It's just another way to help us with recruiting people from the outside. What does success look like? Obviously, success looks like staff recruitment and staff training. I think that's an important piece of addressing the diversity thing is we're not going to turn this around tomorrow. We're not going to turn around tomorrow and exactly mirror our student population. It may be 20 years down the road before we could ever get there. But we can train our existing staff to have a better understanding of what diversity is like and what those needs are. And we could change our recruiting to try to address that. Teacher pipelines, which we talked about, to grow our own will be in effect. I think we have that on our timeline in 2022. A lot of these things that are on our timeline, obviously we'd like to move them up, but like that teacher pipeline at the high school is a budgetary issue because we have to have a teacher for it. So it just kind of depends on what the budget allows us to do and how quickly. And then have district-wide staff connections that are evident in our own staff's ability to communicate what we stand for and our ability to share those out with others. That's it. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Mr. Elliott.
Last but not least, here we go.
All right, we're back. So as we wrap this up, this is an exciting part of all this because I see this as encompassing the four components that you just heard about. When we're talking about our number one commodity and the number one focus is on our students. And so when we talked about a portrait of a graduate, a K-12 approach. What are those key components that we're looking for when our students leave Cleveland City Schools and graduate from Cleveland High School? And our committee worked and came up with the overarching goal, preparing students to be college, career, and life ready. We wanted to encompass all our students, what we're working towards. And there's 5 C's here. Communication, we felt like it was really important. Collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and character. And as you look at those and those bulleted points in there, it encompasses those 4 strategic plan goals that we've talked about. The academic and student success is embedded in there. If you look at it, there's parts related to communications, obviously, like Dr. Aper shared. Mr. Moore and Ms. Reed's presentation talked about those relationships and the importance it's embedded in here. And then, of course, the engaged workforce is so important for our professional team to model these characteristics when they come on board and be a part of our this process. So this is our portrait of a graduate. We're excited about that, and it kind of wraps it together, and it's around the 5 C's. Again, going with that power C that we have here in our logo and our emblem, we felt like that was important, but we do believe these are important characteristics that all our students should have as they go through Cleveland City Schools and learn about step by step to get to that exiting experience when they graduate. Questions about the portrait for graduate?
This just came together so beautifully at the end. I just
It's a
loved
good
it.
bookmark at the
It
end. It really
is, it's great. I mean, it's quick to look at if you're getting this information out to people, but they can dive into it deeper if they want. But that pretty well says a lot.
Are we gonna give this out? I'd love for parents
The
to
plan
have
would be,
this.
yeah, when we go out to do presentations, when this will be on our website, this will be a big publicity
Yeah.
thing for us. And we are looking to get it translated to Spanish as well. It just will take a little bit longer to do that, but that's coming. But yes, this is exactly what the plan is. This is our public front to what we publicly are saying we are wanting to tackle over the next 5 years.
Will this be on our website?
It will be.
And so a stack of these.
And our new website will be ready in July.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, so.
Wow.
that'll
I'm
be it.
just so pleased with how beautiful these materials look.
Yes.
Was it done by was it Quantel?
This was done by a local person, actually.
Mackenzie Waters.
Okay, Mackenzie Waters.
They
Someone kind of-
really look so well done.
I
I'm just
agree.
really impressed.
I agree. Well, I appreciate you saying that because that's something that we talked quite a bit about was, we want this to look like you would see from any Fortune 500 company because
Yeah.
this is important. This is us publicly saying, this is who we are as a school system and this is what we're going to stand for. So that's
We should
important.
tell the chamber and the Realtor Association that these are available for
Definitely.
them to
Yes.
hand out to anyone.
I
We should
agree.
get a stack. to
We
the
need a
city.
stack.
Yeah, we need a stack.
So we will look at getting that,
Yeah.
these printed and bound in some way and make sure we get those out.
Yeah,
Okay,
really good.
very good.
Any other questions or comments about the strategic plan? Very good. Thank you, Dr. Dyer.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks to the team. I mean, you can see that this has been a long, drawn-out process, and on top of that, dealing with COVID, we had to take a break from this to deal with that, and then come back from this. So there's just been a lot going on, It's been, I tell everybody, we've been busier with school not really being in session in a normal way than ever. So there's been a lot behind the scenes, but it's going well.
A lot of
So
stuff.
proud of it, very proud of that.
Have you had a vacation yet?
Going soon. Not
As
yet.
long as graduation is.
Did take
still-
Memorial Day, yeah. It's all right. It's happening. That weekend. All right, if you're ready, we do need to get a vote
Oh, yeah.
to approve, I'm ready to move on to the next thing, to approve the strategic plan with the one change that we will add dealing with walkability. So,
Okay, motion to accept the strategic plan, please.
So moved.
All right, there's our motion and our second. Peggy and Carolyn and Julie's gonna call roll, please.
Okay. Peggy Pesterfield,
Yes.
Carolyn Ingram,
Yes.
Krista McKay,
Yes.
Dawn Robinson,
Yes.
Tom Cloud,
Yes.
Charlie Cogdill,
Yes.
Steve Morgan.
Yes.
okay, well, fantastic. Thank you very much. we will now move, if you're okay with that, to the Sodexo contract. And there is not a formal presentation on this contract. You've had this in your hands since the program came out, and you hopefully have had time to read through. Cindy and Gina are here, and I'm here as well to answer any questions. Also, we have Chaz Harris, who's the Sodexo representative. He is ready to speak if needed. He is not going to speak unless you have questions that you need for somebody from Sodexo to respond to. But we're really here to answer questions that you might have regarding the contract. I've said to you in the communication, this is the most vetted contract I have ever been part of in a school
51
system.
pages.
This has been through, Gina has worked tremendously hard to put this together. Cindy's had input into it. This has gone to TDOE probably 3 or 4 times by now, back and forth to our attorney a few times. We had our final attorney call last Thursday, I believe, and wrapped up with Mr. Harris that same day, and then back to TDOE, and then back to us. So what you have in front of you has been vetted. It has been vetted multiple times. The contract itself meets all the standards it needs to meet for all the different parties involved. Really, at this point, you have a decision to make about whether you want to approve the contract with Sodexo to be part of our middle and high school program, or if you want things to remain the way they are right now. So that's really where we are. We can answer specific questions you have about the contract or anything. And again, Mr. Harris is on the line. So I'll let the discussion start.
Well, do we have a motion to approve the
There you go.
contract?
So moved.
Okay, Tom, is there a second? Carolyn, second. Okay, now, is there discussion or questions?
I have a question,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it may be in the contract that I missed. But I was looking to see, and it may be addressed in where it's talking about reimbursable food stuff, but are they, some places that provide food services require that any food served in that location is provided by that service? Is that gonna be the case under this contract? Or I'm thinking about things like when we have a sports banquet, an end of the year sports banquet that might be held there. Are they gonna be required to provide that food, or can we still use outside catering or
I'll let you two.
Chef Rush, or
Here.
how is that gonna work?
Yeah, the answer to your question is yes, they will provide. Chaz, correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer to your question, from my understanding, is yes, they will be responsible for providing.
So we are contractually obligated to use them and no outside food source for them.
Hey guys, this is Chaz. I do want to say there is a little bit of flexibility around that. We certainly would offer up the services for any type of catering events, but if there's a special situation where you would want to bring in someone from the outside, then I don't think that that would be a problem based on how the contract is structured.
Or if students bring their own, if at the potluck, is that gonna, I just know working at the university, we have to be very careful about bringing our own, even ordering pizzas in for events. And I didn't know if that would be an issue with this kind of contract.
So I guess, Chaz, if a teacher's wanting to have a pizza party, they can still order from a local pizza provider in that sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chad, the question I have, we have the CTE banquet in the spring, and Culinary Arts cooks everything for it, so they will be allowed to do that? Because they are
Yes, sir.
part of the CTE program.
Absolutely. And we would hope to play a role in helping the CTE students in the culinary arts with something like that. So we envision that as an opportunity to really collaborate with the district on something along those lines.
And I've seen that take place, what he described at other schools where the CTE kids are working with the professionals in the kitchen area to develop that menu and program along with the chef that's running the CTE program.
I just know with Reedy's Banquet, they always do it.
Yeah.
I just don't want it to become an obstacle
Right.
for groups that want to do things.
Sure.
To not be able to do what they would want to do
Right.
because of cost or restrictions.
Sure.
I have a question. when I was principal, especially at breakfast, I would have parents come in and their children, or they might go back somewhere and pick up a biscuit from McDonald's or something like that. Will that be personally, we didn't allow it, but I don't know.
It is in a board policy that is not allowed for them to be able to do that currently.
They usually are fairly stringent on not allowing, I'm not saying it doesn't happen from time to time, because, anything can sneak in sometimes, but for the most part, we try to keep that.
Right.
If it is sent in and it's sent in a different container and not typically that packaging that would be noticed.
Right. I think that's something that principals need to communicate to parents.
Right.
Because I had a lot of
Sure.
it and would
Sure.
make parents upset.
Oh, yes, I understand.
But that's it.
So if the band sells candy, and they shouldn't do that during school hours, I understand, but if they do, that's okay.
They can if it's an approved fundraiser.
It is, they can.
Yeah.
That doesn't change.
No. Nope. Those are regulations put out through USDA.
Gina, I don't know how you've had time to do anything. You got, how many lunches out,
173,000, but who's counting, right?
Did a strategic plan and worked on this.
Plus 23,000 fresh fruit and veggie snacks on top of all of
That's
that.
right.
So
That's
So
right.
this is the lady that needs the vacation, right?
Yes, exactly.
I'm taking one starting tomorrow.
Hey, great job.
Yes, yeah.
We were talking, we've been working on this since the fall of 2018.
Right.
Wow.
So this has been a long process to get to the point where the contract is in a final stage for you to decide whether you want to go this direction or not. We, all the way back to when we took the tour over in South Carolina to today, it's been a long ordeal. But I've learned a lot. I know we've all learned a lot along the way. So really, it's now in your hands as a board.
It's gonna be fun to see how this works and see it in action, and the COVID's gonna make it another challenge on top of that because of the amount of food and that kind of thing.
Right.
Krista, you have a question?
Are you recommending this?
My recommendation would be to accept the contract as written and to move forward with the middle school and the high school this program. We're under no contractual agreement to move this to elementary anytime soon. This is very much would be a trial of future things that may happen in elementary, it may not. We may keep elementary like it is forever. It's just one of those things that we wait and see how that goes. But my recommendation would be to move forward.
Is this a one-year contract?
It's a one-year contract with an automatic renewal good for 4 additional years.
Up to 4 years, one year at a time.
1 year at a time.
I have one more question about the 1 year thing, because I was reading in the contract and I may have misread it, but it seemed to me that there's going to be an investment of some money for some equipment. But then it's my understanding that if that's not amortized,
yes,
that we will owe the balance for that. Are we okay with that?
We are. This is something that's been vetted a lot with Mr. Cagle. That we had a lot of discussions about equipment and things like that. And from our point of view, we do need new equipment in certain areas or equipment to be brought up to speed. This is one way to allow us to do that. I'm not trying to speak in your lane because this is definitely your lane and with the money in your lane too, both of you. But if equipment is bought by Sodexo and we, after 2 years, decide that we want to go back to the old way, then we would be responsible at that point for continuing to pay that equipment one way or the other.
And we're okay with that financially, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we would look at fair market value, those kind of things, so.
I've got a question for Hayes. Do you think the students will be excited about this?
I definitely think the students would. I would have one question. How did the cafeteria staff feel about it as of now?
There are various concerns. It is written in the contract, though, that the staff will remain Cleveland City School staff so long as they choose to. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a great question and one that we can kind of piggyback. Every employee that's ours has the option to stay ours. They have to opt out of being our employee if they decide to go work for Sodexo. And that means they qualify for our retirement, just like everything else that they would normally get because they're still our employees. So that's something to think of. Now, they could choose to go work for Sodexo. There are some Sodexo benefits that are pretty good, and including continuing education, things like that. That's Sodexo's business, and if somebody chooses to do that, that's on them to do. But our employees would remain with us.
So when we hire a new employee for the middle or high school, who does that, Sodexo or you?
Sodexo.
Sodexo.
So,
And then that employee can opt to be a Cleveland City School employee or Sodexo.
Yeah.
Sodexo's
Sodexo.
employee.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with you, where do you fall in all of this? As far as, because I know
As far as my position is concerned.
Because they're bringing people in.
They are bringing people in. They're scheduled to bring in a manager over both schools if you choose to do this. And as a school food authority, Cleveland City Schools still has to have a person in place to implement the claims and all of those other things. Not to mention you still have the other 7 schools.
But you're going to be able to work with them when it comes to working with the middle school and the high school still.
Yeah, they would take over day-to-day stuff, but there is still, checking to make sure that those things that need to be done are done according to USDA regulations and state requirements.
She would basically be in charge of them. They would have to ask you whether they can do something or not do something.
Yeah, they would have to ask the system if there was anything that come up that I had a question about that's outside of normally what I handle.
sure,
we would
if it's a
go over
structural
lines.
thing, if they need a wall taken down to do some kind of new salad bar or whatever the case, they can't just go in and do that. They have to go through the same process that anybody else would to do something similar to that.
Maybe I need reminding about, maybe this was in here, but if we have something like COVID again and we don't have school and we're fixing meals that we take out on the buses, what happens?
I'm gonna ask Mr. Harris if he would pipe in because
Okay.
he's had that happen in his other contracts. Can you
Yeah.
kind of explain your COVID response?
Yes, sir. So we would work hand in hand with the district. I'm amazed at the work that Ms. Reed has been able to do with 171,000. And we would certainly partner with the existing staff to be able to continue to work through that crisis period and hopefully be able to bring some other things to the table with respect to maybe some equipment and supplies that sometimes we've seen that other school districts have had difficulties with being able to get, since we are a larger company and we have a really good supply chain network. When other people were not able to get masks and gloves and sanitizer and things of that nature, we were able to quickly get that in to the school districts that we're partnering with currently to help the continuity of service. So we would absolutely work side by side and hand in hand through the next crisis if there is one.
Any more questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the title of the program where the children do not have to pay for the lunch? What is, I've forgotten.
Community eligibility
Yes.
provision.
Are all of our schools still under that, or is the high school and middle school?
They are all under that.
Okay. So how will that work as far as?
We will be able to retain community eligibility provision so long as we can keep our price point where it needs to be in financially stable. COVID-19 has threw us into some, help me with my words here, potential losses.
Yes, revenue loss.
Thank you, lost revenue. We have served quite a few meals. We've done what we can do. The state was very accommodating. We just don't know what that's going to look like next year as far as what waivers may or may not come through. We're waiting on the state, of course, to see how that goes, and anybody else is in the same position. So
I will tell you, I called Senator Alexander's office and I've lobbied that there needs to be some sort of USDA CARES Act relief fund specifically for school nutrition, because as you said, it's not just our school system, this is across the country. They're all going to be in the hole revenue wise. So that's something that I called his office because that's the federal level portion, not state level. So don't know if that'll go anywhere or not, but I felt better after the call. So
according to an article I read this morning in School Nutrition Magazine, it is approximately currently $600 and 26 million in lost revenue.
Not just here.
Right, that's countrywide.
Yeah, that's,
All over the
yeah.
country. But the way the contract is currently written with the rates that are currently in there, we would be okay as far as maintaining that grant. Essentially, that grant or waiver would be what reimburses.
We would still, Sodexo has a price point, yes, and those funds would be used toward that.
And our goal is to increase our participation rates. You know, that's the end goal, is to create an atmosphere where we're increasing those participation rates and empowering our employees to really, you know, do whatever they can to produce that type of food that students are really wanting to eat, that they're used to eating in a more of a fast food place, but I don't want to make it sound like it's fast food, you know, a food that they desire to buy each and every day if they were paying for it with cash. And that's something we want to do and continue to improve on.
And there's gonna be stations and all. Is that the way it's going to operate?
Well, there would be various stations. Now, some of this will take some time to fully implement. You may not have all the stations year one, and it depends on COVID. I mean, a lot of things are so there right now.
I know some students said they were always at the end of the line and food would run out. And-
Right.
Or they didn't have time to eat.
Sure.
You know,
But the goal is, if you recall the presentation, I can't remember the exact names for them, and Chaz, maybe you can speak of this. It'd be a pizza and pasta bar.
Yeah.
Chaz, you want to?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, what you were speaking to, Dr. Dyer, was creating what we would call sort of like a retail dining experience for the students, something that would be similar to what you would see in a mall food court or university dining setting, where students have an opportunity to take from, whether it's the grill station, which would be burgers and chicken sandwiches, it could be pizza. There could be another station that is the quick takes, where there could be salads. We also have an adventure station, which we rotate out food from different parts of the world. So it could be from India or Asia or Mexico at one point. And sometimes we can even rotate in little fun things like comfort food or breakfast for lunch and other sort of neat things to kind of keep driving the variety, to always have the students interested in seeing what's next, and also to be able to really have them be able to choose before they even come into the cafeteria, by using some of the technology that we plan to enable as a part of the solution.
So we also spoke about having lunches ready, or some of lunch ready, so students that were leaving campus for dual enrollment, or they're going out to do their community projects or whatever, they would be able to get a lunch before they left. Is that still gonna happen?
With or without Sodexo? I mean,
With Sodexo,
that would be something that Chaz would have to answer for you.
Yes, ma'am.
They would accommodate.
Yes, we certainly would. And I was mentioning earlier the technology. We have an app that was presented as part of our proposal. It's called So Happy. And through So Happy, that app, students are able to actually do pre-ordering on that app. And so that would help out with any type of advanced preparation of food for students who have to leave and go do some other things.
that would be great, because some of them might leave campus at 10:30 and not be back until 1:30 or 2, and then they miss lunch. But if they could grab something at school versus having to stop at fast food, heaven forbid, then they might do that if it's available.
I think it'd be fun for us to go over and visit the stations and try the food.
Chaz, I have a question for you that, just to clarify, what does COVID-19, or when we go back to school, I know that I had read an article on prepackaged items that Sodexo was looking at. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we, of course, have been working to try to understand, how are we going to best serve our school district partners in the post-COVID environment. And it really runs the entire gamut right now, based on decisions that are yet to be made just as Dr. Dyer was talking about earlier, those guidelines having to be issued. And then once those guidelines or recommendations are issued, then ultimately the school districts will then customize those to meet whatever those needs are locally. And so we've been working with school districts across the country based on what it is they are finally tracking toward. And in some cases, school districts are looking at individual wrapping of items as one way of handling any sort of health safety related issues. Other school districts are looking at, in the cafeteria space, making sure that there's signage and making sure that there are all other safety measures with respect to maintaining social distancing. There are some school districts who have already decided that they're going to do food in the classroom. And so we're, really designing solutions on all of those fronts. And so at the end of the day, whenever Cleveland City Schools decides how exactly the schools will operate once you all reopen your doors in the fall, and how you want us to help with that with respect to nutrition, then we've already got plans, and we'll just plug and play what's necessary to make sure that we meet your specific needs. Hopefully that answers the question.
That's good.
Yes, thank you.
How will the students that are still in this facility be served?
Well, that's something we're looking at. I think we'd have to figure out the model for how, we don't have more than maybe 15 students that are over here, but we want to make sure they get quality food too. Right now, they're served, I think, through the Arnold kitchen. Is that correct?
They are served a high school meal pattern, but they are served through Arnold.
So I don't know if it would be, something where we could bring food to them from the high school over to here, because the transportation, that's a little bit further, of course, than Arnold. So that plan may still have to be for Arnold to be.
Well, he said something about an app where they could pre-order.
Right, and that may be something we could look at.
But
if they
you
pre-order.
have to have a person to transport.
Exactly. And we do have staff going back and forth, so that could be an option, potentially. But I know there's some obstacles with that too, so.
Any other questions? Well, we have a motion and a second, so Julie, if you call the roll, please.
Tom Cloud,
Yes.
Carolyn Ingram,
Yes.
Krista McKay,
Yes.
Dawn Robinson,
Yes.
Peggy Pesterfield,
Yes.
Charlie Cogdell,
Yes.
Steve Morgan.
Yes.
Unanimous, very good. Thank you.
Gina, thank you very much for the work
Thank
you've done. I certainly appreciate it.
Cindy and
Chaz, thank you
Shannon.
for being on the line, Cindy, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good
Excuse me,
job.
I got a son, so got a birthday now, so I gotta go.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Goodbye, Charlie. Okay, Dr. Dyer, student
Okay.
representative update, that's Hayes.
Yes, we're gonna let Hayes go first, and then I'm gonna follow up after that.
Okay. So obviously it's been an odd month, but students and teachers have done a great job at staying connected. I've had multiple duo video chats. I've received all sorts of emails of encouragement from teachers, and they've done a great job at keeping us engaged. And specifically with the AP classes, we've had a really big focus, and it's been even more important to stay engaged. And that was my next thing. AP testing was very different this year, all online, much shorter than usual. But I think it went smoothly. I, of course, heard from a few students had some technical difficulties, but I believe there's a makeup date, so they'll have the opportunity to receive their credit that they are deserving of. Students are continuing to impress even when not in school. Tons of seniors have received scholarships from schools themselves, local businesses, and local organizations, and there's too many to list. Clubs and teams have done a lot of volunteer work. This area has had a need for it after the tornadoes, and I know there were a lot of groups that were cleaning up the community after the tornadoes. Dr. Dyer was helping the soccer team, I think I saw. And the biggest event from this month, the senior cruise, I think it went very well. I know myself and all the other students were very grateful for the opportunity to see each other in person, see our teachers, even if it was through a car window. But I think that went as smooth as it could have gone, and it was a great opportunity for the students to reconnect. And the car decorating contest added a lot of fun. to it as well. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of you for the opportunity. I've had a great experience this whole year, and I've very much enjoyed getting to know all of you, and I hope that I've met expectations. But thank you very much for the whole year.
Well, thank you, Hayes. It's been our pleasure to have you here. You add so much. I know we don't call on you often enough, probably, but we really like your insights that you give to us. It's helpful. And I know you're high school, but you've been all the way through, so you can bring that student perspective to this board. And you've not missed a single meeting. You've been here, and we really appreciate your dedication to that. Would any other board members like to say anything to Hayes?
I'd like to say, first of all, congratulations on your appointment to
Naval.
Naval. I wanted to make sure I was right with it. And I watched him grow from kindergarten to and now his senior year, and I'm just real proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was gonna say, you've done an outstanding job, and you always are so professional, and you bring us so much information. And I would just like to be sure that you keep up with us.
Absolutely.
And that you come back to visit.
Absolutely.
And let us know how things are going for you.
Definitely.
Congratulations. Thank you, like Dawn said, for everything. And you hang around with good people, and that is a sign of your self-worth, is
Thank you.
the people you hang around with.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you also. I'll echo everything that they've said, but thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure to have you here.
You're a bit of an asset to our board. Dr. Dyer.
I don't know, Steve's.
Steve, you want to say something?
Steve.
I was echoing everyone else. Thank you. Godspeed, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Well, I do have something else to say. Hayes, it's been great to be with you as a senior, being able to bounce ideas off of you and just talk to you and hear about your future plans. And you've got a lot going for you right now, and it's going to be interesting to see where you are 4 years from now and the things that you're going to experience. We do have a few things to give you. One is our certificate of appreciation presented to Hayes Martin for being the 2019-20 student liaison to the Board of Education. So I'll give this to you. You also get another medal that you can wear around your neck at graduation. And of course, this in the back says 2020 School Board Student Liaison, has your name, includes these schools on the front. Most importantly, I have a check for you. You get paid. So we appreciate your service in a lot of ways, and we want to tell you thank you, but we also want to show that in a physical way. So you'll have a check that you can take with you today when you leave, and and spend this however you want to. That's up to you. But we do truly appreciate your work, and not just here, but you do a ton at the high school as well, student government, and that shows, and it makes a big difference. And I've enjoyed having those conversations with you on just various topics. So thank you very much. I'm going to give this to you before you leave, so don't go anywhere.
Let's give it a round.
Definitely. I also have someone new to introduce, who is our 2020-2021 student liaison. This is Skylar Stone, and Skylar will be coming into this role starting in August. So we're excited for you and excited to get to know you. Is there anything you'd like to say to the school board quickly before you?
I'm just very excited, and I hope that I can live up to expectations and live up to Hayes' legacy. It seems like he was a very, very good student representative, and I'm honored to, just like take over and like help keep this going.
Fantastic.
Well, you do have big shoes to step in,
Yeah.
And we made you wait and wait. Usually our board meetings are not this long, but this is kind of a 2 or 3 month board meeting all at once.
Right.
And so thank you for being so patient, standing out there and waiting. We appreciate you, and we're looking forward to get to know you. And we'll talk before August, you and I will, to kind of plan so we can see what part you'd like to take in the board meetings. I didn't think till Hayes was halfway through to let him start the meetings, but maybe he doesn't think that's a good idea. So we'll talk and see any ideas that you have that we can carry forward. We want to make it more meaningful for you than maybe it has. I mean, every year I think it gets a little better, but we still want your input to see how we can make it more meaningful for our student. I know it means a lot to all of us, but we want you to feel like you're an integral part of this board meeting. board. So thank you. Nice to meet you.
I just want to say, I really enjoyed reading her application. I thought it was very, very well done, and I like the fact that you represent all the students and that you're solution-minded.
Thank you.
Very well done. Thank you.
So congratulations, and we look forward to working with you. So thank you for coming today, and it was a long meeting, but we're almost to the end.
Yeah.
Almost to the end.
It's not usually.
We're gonna let Steve and Hal take us to the end here, so.
All right, Steve, site committee.
Yes, ma'am. Hal, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm walking up to the little Blue X right now.
Well, we're going to do this very quickly. These are success stories and things that have been coming down the pike for a while we've been working on. So take it away, Hal.
All righty. Well, the chiller is up and operational along with the cooling tower. So we are fully functional back at the high school with our heating and air conditioning. And hopefully that'll stay that way for a long time to come. We got a little punch list we're doing. That's typical stuff that little things to iron out. But like I said, it's up and running. We're happy to have that done. Another good news, if you happen to come by today, which Ms. Pesterfield did, we have trucks hauling dirt away from part of that has been, we've actually had quite a few people wanting the dirt here for a little bit, but we also had to let it dry out. We've had so much rain, and you couldn't have taken a dump truck in and brought it out without bringing mud on the road. So really, this has been the first weather we've had to move it. There's a contractor who's saying he's gonna take it all. And then we have a backup contractor who wants it if he doesn't. So that's where we're at. It may take a little while. There is a lot of dirt there. So it will take a little bit, but we are moving it, and we'll keep an eye on that.
You think they'll have it gone by the time school starts back?
Oh, yeah, we're intending on that. We're intending on that. But it will take us,
Whole building?
it will take a good little while. I expect it to take all month, this month, and I do think it'll be gone before school.
But we're headed for dry weather now and hot weather. What about landscaping and planting and things like that to make the whole area look better now than when that's gone?
Part of our contract with them, we got late into the year and there were some parts of the contract that didn't get fulfilled during the construction, and so they have done that now. Matter of fact, Brian will be here Friday looking at some other things, and we've talked to the contractor about that final piece. They came in about 4 weeks ago, reseeded, hydro-seeded, did some work around there. It actually looks kind of rough because the grass was 4 weeks worth of growth until today, so that was intentional. For about the next month, it'll still look a little rough because we're cutting the grass very high. We have to do that to keep from shocking it. But you should see it start looking a lot better. They are still maintaining the landscaping that was there. And then we had talked with the city and talked with Tommy Myers about out front that when the dirt got moved, the city would come back in, and that would be part of the stuff we worked out. They would come in and help grade that out and seed and get that front area taken care of.
Just to be able to see the building when you drive by there, that is so important. When you have this beautiful multi-million-dollar building and it's been hidden.
Right.
And we've all of us, I'm sure, have gotten lots of comments that weren't most pleasant. So hopefully we can move forward on this.
Right. Yeah, and I know it's been an eyesore to a lot of people. I think the key is to pay to haul that off and dispose of would have been very expensive compared to having somebody who needs it to get it. And so that's been the issue there.
Good.
Who knew the hardest part of building a new building would be moving a pile of dirt?
That's right.
True.
That's right.
Have you heard anything?
I think that's why Hal fired me from the site committee.
You're not fired.
Have you heard anything more from TDOT about when they're going to start working on that road?
No, I think they're still in the purchasing. They're still purchasing, so until they get all the property purchased, I don't think we'll really have a good timeline, something we can depend on. So I think we're still talking, at this point, we're probably talking next spring, and that's strictly a guess, but from what I'm hearing.
That's what I've heard too.
So
I don't know that they're working on much of that right now at all.
Yeah, they've been working at home too, so all their engineers have been at home, so.
That road is terrible.
Yeah, it is.
I've been going up and down some because I've been working in Hopewell some. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah, and not gonna get any better for a while.
I know.
Any questions, anybody else? Anything else? Hal, you got anything else that's not on there that we should know or?
No, you
included, or-
mentioned something about the two gentlemen in maintenance. I didn't know if you were still.
Yeah, I was kind of saving that till last.
Okay. I think that's all I've got as far as.
Yeah, just bring us up to speed if you would. I'd like for us to keep a couple of Hal's employees have had some health issues, and also for those of us that have been on the board or associated with the school system for a while, Gene Bishop passed away, and his funeral is tomorrow. And so I'd like for us to be able to. I know that students are present. I don't know that we can pray during our meeting, but I'd certainly ask that each of you pray for these families. Hal, if you would update us on these two gentlemen and how they're doing.
Daniel Rutledge, if you know Daniel, he's been with the school system for quite a while. He did have a heart attack, had to have open heart surgery and a bypass surgery. He had that on Friday, but he is already back home. And so that's good. He's doing well. They expect him to make a very good recovery. So we're glad to hear that. We were very concerned about Daniel. And then we have another new gentleman that we had hired, and he had a motorcycle accident out at the Ocoee. Him and his wife were on a motorcycle, and so he's going to be out for a while. He broke some bones and had some injuries that's going to keep him out of the. See, it all happened within the same 2 days, on a Saturday and a Sunday. They have to do the same weekend. And on top of that, just as a note, we're got an electrician coming in July, but we also had another person retire. So we are about half staff right now. So this summer we'll be working to get a lot of stuff done, but I do want y'all to know that we are running short on personnel at least until July, and then probably right into the school year, because these things that the two gentlemen have are going to take a while to.
But they will be coming back.
They will be coming back. The both of them will be able to make recoveries and return, and so we're happy about that. And good quality people, and like I said, we're always be glad to get them back.
There's some people that are looking maybe for a job because their job has been discontinued for a while and hasn't started back or something. Some substitute people.
That gets tough. That gets tough with the school system. You start getting into all the insurance requirements and things, and so that gets a little tough to do.
I volunteered my service as an electrician, but he didn't take me on.
Well, I wanted to keep him around for a while. Thought that might not be conducive to him.
It's hard to find people that have these kind of certifications too that'll work with you.
Yeah, so
I agree.
I had asked Hal just to bring us an update because I did want us to keep these guys and their families in our prayers, but I wanted our administrators and folks to know that it is summer and he's running about half power, and they could be patient and give him some time and maybe get their work orders and things in, and because they'll catch up this fall, but it's going to be a hard summer for these guys. So just patience is the order of the day, maybe.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, sir. If no one has anything else as far as site committee goes, Madam Chairman, that's my report.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Hal. I will add to Steve's prayer list, Roger Clark's family. You know, he died, and he taught here at City Center for a long time.
Long time.
Was a coach, football coach. So he passed away also. He and Gene were in the obituaries together, and I just about fainted when I opened the newspaper and saw both of them there. Gene was certainly an asset and great to have when we were doing all that construction we were doing. And we stole him from Chase, but he was ready to settle in Cleveland and not be sent out of town on jobs and things like that. And I believe Dr. Denny hired him, but he was an asset for us to have around. And I think that after having him, we understood the importance of Hal Taylor, having someone of that caliber head up that department as well. So just keep those families in your
I
prayers.
see Jean up at Green Acres
Yeah,
all the time.
I guess, I don't know what their plan is, but.
The sign says, closed temporarily due to a death or something like that.
Doesn't-
Reopen soon.
Okay, oh, good. Well, you can go get those fried pies, Dr.
There you
Day.
go. It's all about the food.
Dr. Day, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay, anyone have anything they want to bring before the board? We don't have a date for our next meeting, but
To be determined.
We'll figure that
I'll be
out.
on vacation the last week of June.
Okay, and
I
what
will
we'll
too.
do,
I will
Carolyn,
too.
is when
We'll
we
be in
get some
Hilton Head.
ideas for dates, we'll send them
Yeah,
out. So, because we certainly want everybody to be at the board meeting, so.
It could be that it's still allowed to do by electronic means too.
Yeah, so, yeah, you got a vacation somewhere you can go.
That's right.
Still
So
work.
We'll have one in
Zoom.
August, we just don't know when we'll have one before then.
Right.
Yes, we're still on par for that. August 3rd, I believe, is that meeting, but we don't know about the rest of June or July, so. We'll, to be announced,
To be announced.
TBA, right?
To be announced.
All right, well, if there's no objections, we will adjourn by general consent. Thank you all.
Thank
Please
you.
forgive me, Chairman.
Thanks, everybody.
Steve, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.